How's it going, everybody? We're going to get into per some great feedback from an individual I'm coaching, Reborn. We are going to go into the deepest yellow analysis I think has ever been done on Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast. And this is for 1.04. And so we're going to cover all of the single and double combinations. I believe it's about how many different movements sources it is. Oh, quite a lot. I hid the key. Let's unhide it. I want to see how much I did. Unhide. So it's 56 different movements, and it's gonna be fairly quick because not all of them are very useful. So I'm gonna hide the key name and the data standardization name. Shorten this up. Shorten this up a little bit. Shorten this up a little bit, shorten the speed a little bit, gaps and efficiencies. Yep, and I think that's going to be good. There we go. I know it's a bit of an eye chart, but I will guide you through it. And I'm also going to be hiding any unapplicable analysis to what we were talking about. So I'm going to talk about singles first. So that means I'm going to hide this portion right here. So we're going to start and go clockwise from left lower diagonal all the way to right lower diagonal. And what that looks like is if you refer back to my prior, and then not that one. I was gonna do it this way, but it's doing this kind of analysis in PowerPoint made absolutely zero sense to me. So I hope you understand that I switched over. So I'm going to switch over to my old view. I'm going to show you the order in which we're going. We're going to go lower left, left side, left upper, forward, upper right, right side, lower right. And when we double up and go 2, we're going to go lower left, lower left, lower left, left side, lower left, upper left. So that's the order that we're going to go in for this analysis. And it's the same order with every single second chain movement. And with that being said, we can start getting into the singles. And so okay. Sorry. Okay, so we're gonna start from the beginning. I got all of the yellow possible combinations here, and of course we're gonna start with the singles. So let's see what left lower diagonal single looks like as we go through step by step. Because we have that capability. So left lower diagonal. So seeing that step by step. There it is. Some decent range. It's not bad. But it goes up. That's the problem. So the range isn't directed outward where the player is most likely to be. It's directed in a weird angle up. Makes it kind of hard to see a path to use. I would actually say that this is completely unusable. For range, because it's not as much lateral range, it's more vertical. I gave it a 1 out of 10. For exposure, I also said it performed poor with exposure because it just leaves you way too open. There's just way too, if we go back again, there's just way too big of a window in which an opponent can come in when you throw this as a single. And I don't think it's that great. You got to use that move in combination with something else. Just as look at that, my entire body's exposed. It's just... that's the amount of saber that I can take right there. So not a very good move, 0 utility, which means I get to overall ranking of 1 out of 10. Decent speed though, not particularly bad speed. It's a little bit under the entire yellow category for singles and yep, just singles. So there you go, pretty much right in the middle. Okay, next one. We're gonna do a left single. Well, this is gonna be a repeat of the same angle, different angle for the same swing. That's a left single right there, nice and simple. So what we see there is we get pretty decent range. So I'm gonna run that back a little bit. Oh, let's see. This is a different media player. They actually track to the millisecond, so I like this a lot. So we step into it and rear the saber back, which creates a little bit of an active window. Otherwise, it's pretty good on exposure because you use it mostly to space out, which I think covers it. I might revisit that exposure setting just because, because you have to go across your body. But I think it overall performs pretty decently. I gave right single instead of 9 out of 10, so I'm comfortable with that still. It's very usable. You can easily use left singles to get little pokes in and then roll away. And this utility ranking here, it actually bakes into the assumptions. It bakes in speed, spacing, crouching, aerials, general use. So that's kind of a catch-all for anything that I'm not capturing in exposure, range, and speed and efficiencies for the doubles. So that's what the utility is. We're going to give that an overall ranking of 7 out of 10. So that's a good score. And we're going to move on to left upper diagonal singles. Get the other angle for lefts. Left upper diagonal. Pretty simple. Pretty easy concept. Now, left upper diagonals. Decent speed. Right down the middle of the road. Really good range. Oh my gosh, they have good range. Exposure, pretty bad for exposure, but that's to be expected of diagonals. So I give that a 4 out of 10 utility to use it by itself. I'd rather see that in a combination, and that leads us to an overall ranking of 5 out of 10. Now we move on to one of my least favorite subjects, which is the forward single. Blah! That's pretty much it. And, oops, went too far ahead. Let me skip that back. I want you to see the full swing when we're actually on that one. So forward singles can be triggered by standing still, by going forward, or by pressing the S key. A lot of people do it accidentally. It's typically regarded as an error, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it does have the reach. For that reason, it's not a 0 in utility. The range is absolute crap. It's not aimed completely upward, just like the left lower diagonal that is aimed not very much outward, so that gets the second worst ranking on the single list. Exposure is pretty bad. It's easy to get past in a sweep, which has more range. It can be punished in any number of ways, so exposure, it performs very poorly. And so we're going to give that an overall 2 out of 10. Okay, and then we're going to move on to upper right diagonal, which I accidentally just skipped ahead to. So that's an upper right diagonal right there. And we're going to skip back. We're going to see that in slow-mo. I wish it were smoother in transitioning backwards, but I'm not. This is free media software, so I'm not going to complain. Okay. Nice. So we get a decent amount of range on that. That's a good amount of range. Exposure's typical to expect of the right upper diagonal. So I said it performs okay on right upper. Left upper, you're going across your body. And so it does it 1 point worse. It's not that much better. It was not enough to shift the utility forward, same range. And then, so an overall 6 out of 10 compared to 5 out of 10. So there we go. And then if we have a right single coming up. They're right up diagonal, right single. Right single. So pretty basic. It's pretty fast. It's underneath. So the forward single and the right upper diagonal were both above the speed of a typical single swing. Right single is the second fastest in this series and performs excellent on exposure because you put the saber across your entire torso and then you swing, so it's really good for sealing off. And I'm gonna slow down so we can see that. Yep, there we go. Come on, there it is. So you bring the saber all the way across your body, whereas you have to get across your body on left. Like when you swing right, you drag the saber across the exposed part of your body for longer. Left, you have to get to the exposed part before you can get to the active window, so it's a little bit riskier. So right is better for exposure, as we can see. I think it performs a lot better, actually. Utility, I kept it at about the same as the left. I think they both have their times and places. I think the left actually has slightly, no, I think the ranges are pretty comparable. And so that actually put it, because of the exposure, we put that at an 8 out of 10. Now we're going to move on to the right lower diagonal. Right lower diagonal, right there. Nice and simple. I don't think you should ever use this by itself. Ever. Like, ever. It has a little bit more outward movement, so I gave it points on the range, but because of the 0 on utility, we're going to keep that at a 1 out of 10. So that's that we've covered singles. Congrats, guys. We got through it. With that being said, I'm going to hide this. I'm going to go on. I'm going to group this. Excel as I am. So we're going to start with double left lower diagonal series. Sorry if I'm making you dizzy. Double left lower diagonal. So let's get into that. That's another view. So again, you got the same swing going upward. There's no reason to use this. I give it a 0 out of 10. And the range is bad. Leaves you very exposed. Its speed is okay, but that's irrelevant if you shouldn't use it. So we're going to give that a 1 out of 10. Going to go on to left lower diagonal into left. You could space that out. It has an okay range. And it's a little bit, it's one of the fastest moves in this category. Range, I gave it a 4 out of 10. Exposure, 5 out of 10. The diagonal leaves you a little bit exposed. It's a tricky first swing, but if you use it for spacing, probably can make good use of it. You don't want to be doing it very often. This is usually best used when you're going into a sweep or if you're going into a stagger step. So the utility by itself, I'm actually going to give it a 2 out of 10. Wouldn't expect to use this very much. So that brings the overall ranking given the range and the exposure up to a 4 out of 10. Left lower diagonal into left upper diagonal, or diagonal side cross. We're going to see that. Diagonal side cross. There we go. So let's slow that down. So lower, and then upper. And you can space that out really well. Because it's comprised of 2 diagonals, I gave it a 5 out of 10 on the range. Being dragged down by the lower and dragged up by the upper. And exposure, I gave it a poor performance because the sweep can easily just destroy that if you don't use it to space out. If you use that to challenge, you're done. And for the spacing aspect of it, I gave it a 5 out of 10. I think that's fair. Because you're able to cover a lot of ground really fast. If you use that lower one not to hit, but the upper one to hit, that would probably be a good little tactic. So that we gave that a rank of 4 out of 10. And then moving on to left lower diagonal into forward. One of my least favorite moves ever. There's no reason to use that. I'm not even gonna dignify it by slowing it down and going back to see it. Left lower diagonal into forward. It performs poorly on speed, has limited range, performs poorly on exposure, and you should almost never use it. Maybe if you're using the diagonal to space out and then the forward to chase, that's the only reason I didn't give it a 0. So we're gonna give that a 1 out of 10. Brings it down to an overall ranking of 1 out of 10. Left lower diagonal into right lower diagonal. Let's see that. That's a diagonal sweep. It's what I would call a vanity move. You're not going to see that. The contradictory movement limits the mobility. So we're going to see that one more time. I don't want to show this, but we'll just do it anyway. So that's right. Oh, skipped ahead. Sorry, guys. Give me a sec. Jeez. Do it, dude. Okay. It's so fast, so I have to... So, there we go. Blap. Blap. Oh, that's not even a right swing. I'm sorry, guys. I'm messing up bad right here. Okay, there's left lower into side, left into upper, left into forward, left. There it is, left. Yep. So that is the diagonal sweep. It's a vanity move. Leaves you pretty exposed, but you can use it in the contradictory motion. It sacrifices some utility. It looks nice, but isn't usable. I gave that a 2 out of 10 for And because of how good it performs with range and exposure, I gave it a 3 out of 10 overall. Left lower diagonal into right. Let's see what that looks like. You can use that to space out. It has some utility. I like that move. It's not bad. So I want to give that a little bit of credit. So let's see that frame by frame. So you got right, and then go into, and you can use that to feint and then go into sweep immediately after. I think there's some utility there. Performs well on performs okay on range. It is the fastest of the lower left diagonal series. Pretty good speed. So I give the utility a 5 out of 10, and the overall mix there brings it to 5 out of 10. Really ought to weight utility a little bit heavier, but I think that that's reflected appropriately. So haven't had any complaints yet. Now we're going to see the reverse diagonal cross. There is little to no reason for that move. Maybe for spacing and backing up for defense, but it slows you down, and you're S-keying it, and I just overall think that that's just not a very good move. So I gave that a 1 out of 10. Leaves you very exposed, not very good range, and pretty. It's okay for speed. So we're gonna move on then to where we moved on to unhide. We just did double left lower diagonal. So we're going to move on to left. Left into left lower diagonal results in a turn, which is not good. We don't want to see that. Sorry guys, let me hide this. Don't want to make your eyes dizzy. Okay. Yeah, it's a turn. There's no reason you should ever use this. But decent range, decent exposure. You can get a little bit of spacing into it. Maybe you can trick somebody into baiting and then go after him. I'm gonna give that a 3 out of 10. And then we're gonna move into double left. Left, left. Not bad. A feint is possible, so you can space it out, and if you move around with it a lot of people use that to bait people in, because you can be highly mobile. It's just an overall great swing, as we saw from the single analysis. So it's a good swing, good range that performs very well with exposure, especially if you space it out. 6 out of 10 for utility on the spacing point, and you can also use it to poke in between red hits on that single cadence. So we're going to give that overall ranking of 7 out of 10. Pretty cool. Stagger step. So the stagger step is infamous. Everybody uses it. Everybody loves it. I think people use it a little too much. You know what I mean? So we have left, and then it hangs for a second, which is incredible for drags. Oh my god, it's so good for drags. And then comes back around. It seems like it's very exposed, but I actually gave it a 6 out of 10. And the reason for that being is because you can space it out. A lot of people used to poke and roll. And so I gave it, for that reason, still a 6 out of 10, and also an 8 out of 10. And trying to get a little bit more real estate. Never mind, that's not going to work. Okay. Yeah, so very, very usable. People, in fact, I think overuse it, so I'm actually going to knock down the utility a little bit. I don't think it should be used by itself very often, but it can be used for very useful poke and rolls, and to get in between reds, and to overpower some blues and come over the top of some sweeps. So range 8 out of 10, exposure 6, utility 8, so we end up with a 7 out of 10. Left into forward. Again, pretty useless. I'm just going to blow by it. Okay, you guys wowed? Is that your favorite combo now? 1 out of 10 utility, not usable. Okay with exposure. Performs very good with performs pretty decently with speed. It's right toward the middle. Actually, it's a little bit on the lower side based on the analysis here. And then overall, based compared to all yellow, it's pretty slow. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend using this too much. 3 out of 10. It has a place, I think, for chasing, but overall, probably shouldn't use that so much. Okay, left into right upper diagonal. You can use that to space out. That's useful. It has uses, but just not very much. Great range. Handles exposure really well. You're going into a left. Left into the right diagonal does a good job at sealing off. Performs okay on speed. And then, so we're going to give that an overall 6 out of 10. Left into right sweep. Let's see it. Left sweep into right sweep. You've seen it a million times. I don't see the need to play it back again. I think that's right before Banana came in to kill me. Left into right sweep. Great range. Handles exposure the best of, I think, anything that we've seen. Seals you off nicely. Utility is a 10 out of 10. I think it's our first 10 out of 10, and I feel very comfortable putting it there. A little bit of the limited range compared to the diagonals puts it a little bit down. The diagonals obviously have better range. They can be used tactically, like interchangeably. Get a good mix on both. Just a 1-2 sweep by itself, very common. Used a lot. Overall ranking, 9 out of 10. Left into right lower diagonal. Left. You shouldn't be doing that move. Just don't do it. 2 out of 10. Which I think is being very charitable. I actually want to take that to... I actually want to put that at 1 out of 10. I think that's just as useless, if not less useless, than a left into forward. Which makes that a 4 out of 10. Okay. We're going to hide this and move on to left upper diagonal. Left upper. Or I should just scroll down. That'd be easier. Yeah, that's what I think I'm going to do. Left upper diagonal. Press. Got a lot to go, boys. Left upper diagonal to left to lower. So it's let's see what that looks like. Don't use that. 0, 3 out of 10. Okay range because they're diagonals. Forms okay on exposure because I'm pretty sure you can space that out, but just don't do it. 3 out of 10. Some people, I will say, some people might use that to bait. So that justifies a little bit higher of a ranking, but not that much. 3 out of 10. Double left. This is a good one. Oh, that's just the same one, I think. Did I skip? No, what am I doing? Left upper diagonal. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'm looking at this one. Oh, I need to go to bed soon. Left upper diagonal into left. That's what we just saw. Left upper diagonal into left. Let's see if we go back. Yeah, so that's the one that results in a turn. Whenever you have a turn, the utility plummets. So I gave that a 1 out of 10. You can get some decent range. Left upper diagonal is one of the best spacing moves. Left has some good range as well. Handles exposure okay. So we're going to give that a 5 out of 10. Double left upper diagonal. Pause that. Double left upper diagonal. Forms okay on speed. Good range. 2 diagonals. Exposure. Does it? does pretty poorly with exposure. 2 diagonals in a row, it's you're not going to parry away very much. You might get over the top of something, but 2 in a row, nah, I don't think so. Overall ranking, 5 out of 10. Left upper diagonal into forward. Not a fan of this at all. Probably shouldn't be using that. Does okay with range. I mean, you do have a diagonal, but don't do it. 1 out of 10. Overall, is it the range? Because it does somewhat okay on exposure, 3 out of 10. Left upper diagonal, right upper diagonal, so a diagonal cross. I see people use this. I give the utility a 5 out of 10. You can space in 2 different directions, which makes it nice. It's a little versatile. If you learn how to strafe into it properly and get some spacing on it, it can be usable. Great range. Does okay with exposure. And you realize some combo efficiency there. So instead of doing 2 separate diagonals, there's a lot to be gained, it looks like, from doing 2 of them at the same time. So we would actually prefer probably go double on diagonals is kind of a general rule, if you can. Utility, 5 out of 10. Which brings us to 6 out of 10. Left upper diagonal into right. Pretty good. It's okay. Does very well with exposure, does very well with range. Does okay with utility. Based on how it handles the exposure and how it handles the range, we're going to give that a 6 out of 10. I can use that. And then left upper diagonal into right lower diagonal for a diagonal sweep. Again, it's a vanity move. Don't do it. Just don't do it. You get some range. You can maybe space out interestingly with it, but the conflicting movements mean you're probably not going to move very much. And yeah, it's just not a great move. 3 out of 10. Okay, now we're going to move into forwards, which are just ass. Should have just grouped all these. I don't know what I was thinking. Okay, we're going to see forward into left lower diagonal. Nope. 0. 1 out of 10. There's very little redeeming about this whatsoever. Next. Don't do it. Bad turn. Forward into left. This one makes me a little bit happier. It's quick. It's really quick. It's one of the quickest moves, actually, in all of the left series, which surprised the hell out of me. It's also one of the, it's probably the fastest forward easily. Get some decent range. Handles exposure okay. I gave it a 3 out of 10 just because you don't really want to use it a lot, and that leads us to an overall of 4 out of 10. Forward into left upper diagonal. People can use that. If there's a red opening, you can come over the top of it with a forward. And then, like for example, if you see a red swing and somebody is swinging red and they're, let's say, how can I draw this? So a red swing coming at you like this, pretend it's the perspective is that it's coming from here. Here's the hilt. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing with the hilt, guys. Oh my gosh. And let's say that it's going this way. Lighter color red. Let's say it's coming this way. And forward into right upper diagonal. You could forward over the top of that. I'm gonna do yellow. Maybe you might be able to see it. I hope so. Yeah, you can forward over the top of that once their active window passes, and then diagonal to chase. And they might have trouble rolling away from that. So for that reason, I gave that a 4 out of 10. You get some decent range and a little bit of utility too. Pretty cool. Forward into right. It's a turn. Don't do it. I don't even want to look at this. Oh, the double forward. Oh, wait, guys. Yeah, 4 out of 10. Okay. Double forward. That's an epic fail. Bad. 1 out of 10. You don't want to do that. It looks like a noob mistake, and it is treated like a noob mistake and punished heavily. Don't do it. Forwarded to right diagonal. Yeah, that's usable. It's a decent swing. Give it the same as the left upper diagonal. 4 out of 10. Same reasons as well. It's a little bit slower, as we observed. But still, it does okay. Still does okay relative to this category. A little bit slower compared to all yellow. We're going forward into right. I think this is yeah, don't do this, guys. 1 out of 10. And then this is an absolute nightmare. Don't do this. I'm not even going to say the name of this. You can read it for yourself if you want to. 0 utility, 1 out of 10. Don't do it. Forward into lower right diagonal. Nope. Just don't. Don't do it. Okay, we're going to go into right upper. Almost complete. Can't believe this went by so fast. Having a lot of fun right now, actually. Okay, we're going to go start with right upper diagonal and then left lower. It's diagonal sweep. It's a vanity move. Utility 2. Overall 3. Probably shouldn't be using that. It is fast, but it handles exposure poorly, and you really don't have a use for it, so that's why it's a 3. Right upper diagonal into left. Yeah. You can use that to space out. Go ahead and space out, boy. Look at that range. Yeah, I could use that. There we go, frame by frame. Right. And I can move an interesting way with it. Get a poke, then come back out. Yeah, that's a good move. Utility 6 out of 10. Good spacing potential. Good poke potential. Exposure. Handles it well. Good range. We're going to have that a 7 out of 10. Right upper diagonal into right upper diagonal. Is that right? That's a double. Or right into left. Okay. Diagonal cross. I gave that the same analysis earlier. We also gave that a 6 out of 10. Does good with efficiencies. A little bit faster than the category. Same speed as generally all the light yellow. So right upper diagonal into forward. Yikes. I actually don't even want to do the rest of this tree, to be honest with you. We're gonna blow by this. All these moves are pretty bad. Even the upper right diagonal into the right. I mean, we have a turn here, and then we have a right upper diagonal into a lower right. We're gonna blow by these guys. Right double, get good range. Right into right, get a turn. Right into lower right, get a turn. So that's actually a mistake. I need to say yes. Sorry, guys. My bad. Now we're gonna go into our second to last series. Okay, we're gonna go right into left lower diagonal. Don't do that. You get a weird little up double thing. Another vanity move I've seen used in the past by elites. We really don't want to be doing that. It's stupid and it's incredibly exposed. I mean, what are you going to use that for? So just don't do it. Bad range, 0 utility, 3 out of 10. But it's okay with exposure. Mix a right in there. Right's good at sealing you off, as we can see. Okay, right and a left sweep. That's another S tier strat. We're going to blow right through it because we already covered that pretty much in the left and right. Yep. Much faster than everything else in the category. And one of the fastest moves in general for all yellow. Fantastic. Right into upper left diagonal. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, you can use that. It's a good one. We give that an overall ranking of 7 out of 10. Good utility, good exposure, Good range. Mix that in with a crouch. You get spacing on it. Yep. Makes sense to me. Does okay with speed too. Very nice. Right into forward. Disconnected, clunky mess with no combinational rhythm. Does okay on speed. Okay range. Okay exposure. Bad utility, leaving it to an overall ranking of 4 out of 10. Right into right upper diagonal. Yep. You can use that. Not much, but you can. It's great range. Handles exposure well because the saber's coming across. You whip the saber from the left side of your body to the right, so you get some good protection there. You can give that an overall ranking of 6 out of 10. I think that might be a bit, actually. Okay, moving on to double right. I said that there's a turn there. That's inaccurate. I believe I meant to put a turn here. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry, I messed up. Double right. I prefer double left, I think. Good range. Okay speed. Yeah. When you're going to the right, you do sacrifice a little bit of range in exchange for exposure performance. For that reason, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10. Usually, you want to. It's situational. It has a use and it has a place, so we're gonna give it a 7 out of 10. Right into lower right diagonal. Don't do this, guys. Just, you'll make me cry if you use that move. Don't do it. 3 out of 10. Not good. Okay, and we're gonna move on to our last series, which is gonna be the right lower diagonal. Don't do that move. Reverse diagonal cross. Give that a 1 out of 10 utility. Bad range, bad exposure. 2 out of 10. It's almost as bad as it gets. Right lower diagonal into left. It's situational. There's a time and place. Okay on range, okay on exposure. Yeah, it's okay utility. We're gonna give that a 4 out of 10. Why is that bar so big? Okay. And speed, pretty decent. Get some good speed. Might be a good one to kind of go into a poke if somebody's got a blue flurry. But the risk of that right lower diagonal is that somebody's going to go on the top of it pretty easily. I don't think that lower diagonals have much of a place in general, besides getting some ground. So, pretty lame. Right lower diagonal into left, so it's a side cross. Or a diagonal sweep. I apologize. Side cross is coming up. So that's the diagonal sweep. We have already talked about that. I'm going to give that a 3 out of 10. Give it the same treatment as I did with the one prior. Right lower diagonal into forward. Okay. Yeah, not a good combination. I gave that a 2 out of 10. Utility, bad exposure, bad range. Speed's okay. We're going to give it a 2 out of 10. That's well earned. Right lower diagonal into right upper diagonal, sideways cross. That's situational. Oops. Wow, I moved super fast. I'm sorry, guys. I was like, I'm tired. I want to go home. Or, I mean, go to bed. Okay? Right. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, wait. Oh, I think it's gonna. Yeah, it's okay. Let's watch the series, guys. So there's the diagonal side cross that we just saw. Oh, I'm sorry. We were the next swing. Yeah, that's situational. I gave it a 3 out of 10. It's less situational than the. Well, actually, it's about as situational as the right lower diagonal into the left. So I gave it the same treatment. Again, that's 4 out of 10, repeating the same as above. You can space that out and then get in for a poke. Ideally, you put that into a triple. Double lower right diagonal. Don't do that move. You'll make me cry. Poor exposure, poor range. Overall ranking 1 out of 10. Okay. And now we're going to go to our grand total analytics. All right, let's zoom in on this. All right. So let's see how we do, all things considered. Singles. No special combos. When I say special combos, I mean, does it have a special name or something it goes by, something people recognize? No, it doesn't. Just call it singles. 0 turns because there's 0 combination. Great speed. But of course, you're comparing this to all of this. And this is an average speed given all of this. So yes, it's different categories, but you want to compare it against yellow performance at large. So if you want a quick little hidden, that's your indicator. Actually, I think we should go by column. We shouldn't go by row. That's stupid. I would never do that in analysis. Sorry, guys. Number of special combos. We have some left lower diagonals and lefts, and right lower the diagonals in the left seem to have a you could combine them into interesting ways there. Diagonal crosses, side diagonal crosses, diagonal sweeps, regular sweeps. There's some opportunity there for combination, but most of the combinations are not usable, so I don't think that number means very much. Turns, we see that predominantly with left upper diagonals and with doubles in forward. So you probably don't want to start off combinations with left upper diagonals and forwards unless you got a game plan for whipping out something special. Speed. So the best speed performance obviously is going to be the singles, but let's go ahead and scan the data and see what does the best for others. Doubles from left, lower left. You get fast. Yeah, it's fast, but you don't have a lot of useful combinations. I mean, you have a really poor overall ranking, so in bad range, so I'm not sure that you want to be using that too much. Okay, I wonder what it actually be. Might actually be cool to see speed over exposure, speed over range, speed over utility. That might it'll give you an idea of how much you're sacrificing for a little bit quicker speed. And the slowest is going to be the right upper diagonals. It makes sense. Those are big sweeping motions that perform okay on exposure. Better than the left upper diagonals, that's for sure. As we keep going through speed, we see right is faster than left, but not by much. It's because right has more turns. Nope, same number of turns. My explaining skills have failed greatly today. Efficiencies. So that means when you're transitioning from single to double, how much time you'd save by instead doing a double instead of 2 singles of the similar swings. You don't realize a lot of efficiencies in left, so that tells me it's you might want to consider more left singles. It's not you're only saving 1/3 of a second by going to left doubles. Consider saving some time, some energy. Stick to singles, or maybe use that stagger step left. Everybody. Okay, doubles from forward. That realizes the most efficiencies. So if you do a double, and for whatever reason possesses you, you feel like you need to do a forward, you do get some speed there, as long as you're okay with virtually bad at everything else. So for that reason, I wouldn't pay much mind. Let's see what else we got. Doubles from right lower diagonal again. Poor performance on all else. Wherever we realize efficiencies, we're starting to see a little bit of a trend where we sacrifice average range a little bit. Be interested to see this all plotted. Maybe try to draw up some R coefficients, see if there's a relationship. Anyway, going on to range. Great range for the right upper and the left upper. Obviously, yeah, it's a given. But because you have the doubles for diagonals that are making the range good, and they're going outward instead of backward, like the lower diagonals. So good stuff. The lowest range are obviously going to be the lower diagonals. Singles have decent range performance, but the diagonals are what's going to space you out the most. Average exposure. So what protects you the most? Right. So perhaps if you have low health, you might want to consider throwing more rights, as that'll protect you more. And perhaps less. Well, nobody's going to throw a forward, nobody's going to throw a right lower diagonal when they have low health. Left lower diagonal as well. Singles actually don't protect you very much. 0.43. That's a 4 out of 10 performance. Yeah, might not want to throw a yellow single when you have low health. Which one is less obvious here? Right upper diagonals. The rights and lefts cover you up pretty well. Stay with the basic sweeps. Cover yourself up. Get some distance. Average utility. So this is usefulness, and when I say utility, I still consider all styles. So that's why some of the scores are a little bit lower. As we go into triples, the utility is probably going to explode. And also realize that there are some very bad moves which cause you to turn, and that's going to drag down the utility as well. And that's present especially in these, which drag the utility down. Well, they're also forward, so it's not very utilized anyway. Right lower diagonal, that's another poor utility. It makes sense. Left seems to be the most versatile and usable of yellow, and it's by a long shot. It's interesting. Why is that? You lose a little bit of efficiencies, but your range is great, performs well, and you cover yourself up well. And it's the stagger step also, which drives that up a little bit. Overall ranking, 0.55. Squeaks out a narrow victory for the top overall ranking over the double right. Double forwards, obviously it's going to be useless. Right lower diagonals, useless. I'm surprised by the uselessness of left upper diagonals. I think it's because of the turns that are dragging that down a little bit, and perhaps some of the diagonal sweeps, which don't have a lot of utility. Left lower diagonal, I would expect that to actually be a little bit lower, but it can be a good setup move to move into other combos. Yeah, and right is also quite useful. The rights, singles, and doubles and left. Very cool. Overall ranking now. Doubles from left have the best, and narrowly behind are doubles from right. A little bit of the distinction there is that lefts, let's see, they don't perform as well with exposure. It's a given. You have to go across your body, and also the stagger step leaves you very exposed, so that makes perfect sense to me. Range is virtually the same. Utility, on the other hand, is what's going to put this up just barely, making out an overall victory. You want to stay away from left lower diagonals and forwards, as well as right lower diagonals. So you really want to stay with that in this territory. Left upper singles. So that's some good findings right there. I expect to take this into triples. It's going to be a much more comprehensive analysis, and I'm actually going to have to run some algorithms to do that analysis for me, and then I'm going to test it against samples with other players to see how close to the analysis my numbers are, and make some variance adjustments as necessary. But I did all the doubles and singles by rote, and I think I'm on about hour 9 of working on that. I have no life. And yeah, so this is a lot of fun. I love talking about this. I have some analytical ability, and so speaking to this world about the game that I like the most, pretty fun. And if we zoom out, we get to see the entire smorgasbord of different things. And the methodology for this was I computed the speed by minusing the start time and stop time I saw in these videos by going frame by frame. And I estimated up or down to the 100th to 1000th of a second, depending on how obvious the frame stop was. range I actually assigned here, and then I made everything else a computation of range. So for example, I have a double left, that's a bad example. Left lower, diagonal into left, I would take the average of these two, and that's what gets me the 4 out of 10, 3.5 rounded up. Same thing with exposure. I ranked each of the singles on exposure, and if you do 2 of the moves, that's obviously a composition of the 2 numbers, so I thought this makes sense. I'm not sure you can make a good argument for there being a vastly uniquely better way to calculate exposure than this. You really want to make the case that like you get covered up better or more exposed in certain combinations. Maybe you could make a case for some moves. Not sure. It's kind of a subjective thing too, especially based on how your knowledge of the moves vary between player to player. Utility was the most controversial one because I literally went through and judged them all on my personal thing, but I think that my reasons were pretty good. And then the overall ranking is just an average of these 3 values. But I think a learning moment could have been that utility should have been weighted a little bit more. So I would say, 30% range, 20% exposure. No, 30% range, 30% exposure, and 40% utility. I think that would have been the right way to go. But this is what we got for right now, and I don't see anything. I don't see any clear standouts and travesties of justice, I should say. I think some bad moves were ranked a little bit higher than they deserve because they have decent range because of being a diagonal. And that being said, I'm pretty happy with this analysis. It passes my gut check for what I know about JK2. And so I am going to end it there. And I hope that some of you reborn find this useful. I hope some good duelists and some people who've had years and years of experience in base can see this and at least be intrigued by the findings of some variety. Anyway, it's almost 4 a.m. and I am going to go to sleep. And this will be up by the morning. And I'll see you in the next one.